Recording. So guys, how are you? Full of tasks? Full of things to do? Yes? Enough?
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to discuss a bit on technique of forehand and backhand in tennis. Okay? We have set up the tennis court. That's the net.
Enough, yeah.
We
I can
have
see it.
we have a racket. We have a ball for kids. Remember that the last time I mentioned that the balls for kids are different. This is ball for kid. Way bigger than the typical ball. It's marked with a red spot. There are different spots. There are red for very small kids like mine. That's why I have them. And there are the green balls, they have the green spot. They are a bit tougher, but still very soft. And then there are the normal balls, the yellow ones, the ones that we use usually. Anyways, let's discuss a bit on, let's start immediately and discuss a bit on technique and talk about the grip in tennis. Let me see what I have. Oh yes, I have this as a marker, which I will need. And I'll explain you why, because we are going to discuss how to hold the racket in tennis for the shots, for the baseline shots. So the basic and most important strokes in tennis are forehand and backhand. And usually when you take your dominant arm, in my case is the right arm, what you take into account is these two spots. This one here and this one here. The heel pad and the knuckle, index knuckle here. These two spots here. Now, if you trace a line, I'll try with my left hand. I don't know if I'm not sure if I can do it. Yeah, I did it more or less. See, that's the best that can happen to me, because usually my kids do way worse thing to my face or this stuff. So when you draw this line here, this is the line that in very shortly I will explain why we need this line, or to take it into account at least. Racket. So how do you hold the racket for playing tennis, for a forehand, for instance? Let's start with a forehand. When you put the racket this way, so like with the profile up, if you can see, there are it's like an octagon. Can you see there are 4 marked small lines? 8, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a shape. It's an octagon. Or oxagon. Not sure. How is it in English? Can you see? Can you all see that? Usually we take yes. A yes from someone would be great.
Yes.
So we take into account these surfaces to establish the grip of a player. So this top, this one is the number 1. And then based on your left or right, typically this number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the bottom, 6, 7, and 8. So you number them. So far so good, guys?
Yeah.
So now when you want to hold the racket in tennis, apart of the fact that you have to hold it at the very bottom, so usually with the finger, with the 5th finger on the bottom of the racket. But how do you hold it? It depends on the surface in which you put this line. So you have this line ends up on a surface. Based on which surface number, it's a different grip in tennis. For instance, the old grip for forehand that is now used only by tennis coaches to feed ball to the students, because now it's not used anymore because it's not very functional, but it was used 50 years ago, 60 years ago, is called continental. Continental is when you put this line on the surface number 2. So you have number 1, number 2. So when I do this, I see the surface, I put the line on that, and I hold the racket. So the line that I drew on my hand lays on the surface number 2. Okay, maybe you can't see it here, but it's the line. I just simply put the heel pad on the bottom, and then make the line coincide with the surface number 2. This is called continental grip. Again, it's not used anymore for the forehand, but it was used 50 years ago. Now it's used for coaching only because it's very easy to hit the ball, but you hit the ball mostly flat. And tennis players almost don't use flat shots anymore because there is a lot of spin on the ball. And it's very complicated to control a ball that has a lot of spin with this type of grip. We use it for other shots that we won't talk about today. So the continental has a particularity that is also called hammer grip. Hammer grip because as you hold the racket, it looks like a hammer when you hammer something. So the same way you would hold the hammer, you hold the racket. Just don't use the racket as a hammer because it will probably get destroyed. So it's called a hammer just because, for instance, many times for beginners or for kids, we want them to imagine something like more of common use. And so it looks like a hammer grip, hammer, the way you hold the hammer. And if you can see when you hold the racket with the continental, the way you need to hit the ball basically is this way, so that your wrist is quite bended when you hit it, and it's very complicated to hit the ball this way and control it when it comes very fast. It's 50 years ago, it was much easier because the ball was slower, players were slower in general, and so it was used a lot. Now with the evolution of the types of rackets, material of the racket, balls, rules, etc., tennis is way faster, and this grip cannot be used anymore. The second and another very common grip, the one that I actually use for playing, is called Eastern, like from the East. Is, for instance, is Roger Federer's grip. So the Eastern grip is, instead of using the surface number 2, you use the surface number 3, this one. So same process. I put the palm here. I make the line that I draw lay on the surface number 3, and this is the Eastern. What's the difference between the hammer? The Eastern is the easiest way to hold the racket for a forehand because it's pretty simple. Basically, the head of the racket is in the same position as your palm. So this is your palm, this is the head of the racket. A way to hold the Eastern is, which I tell to the kids, is take your racket, put the palm on the racket, and then go down little by little until you reach the bottom and hold it. In this way, the palm, your palm, is in the same position as the racket when you hit the ball. You're hitting the ball here, the racket is straight, as you can see. If you remove the racket, also your palm is straight. So it's like pushing the ball with your palm. It's very easy for the kids because the kids understand immediately, or you can also do exercise without racket in which they are hitting with the palm. The only thing is that then, instead of the palm, they have the racket. But it's very easy to understand because, boom, when you hit the ball, here, the palm is in the same position as the racket. This is a very traditional grip. It's the old style, but used still. Less used than it used to be before. It's very good for flat shots in which you hit the ball straight and flat, no spin. Less useful for spin. Since I started playing around probably 28 years ago. So at that time, that was the technique that was mostly used and recommended. It's still very useful, but now they went, most players use different technique, different grip, like Thiem, for instance, for making an Austrian example, Rafa Nadal, etc. They use the so-called semi-Western, as Americans would pronounce, or semi-Western, and you still keep going down on the surfaces. So we say number 2 continental, number 3 Eastern, number 4 is semi-Western or semi-Western. Same process. Put the palm here, line, the line that I draw is on the surface number 4. And when you hit the ball, it's way more open. So when you want to hit the ball, in order to hit the ball, my wrist has to be bent, partly bent. If I don't do that, the racket would be this way. If I use my palm, the racket would be this way, and the ball would go down. So you have to open the wrist in order to hit the ball properly in front of you. What's the advantage? The advantage is that you give a lot of spin to the ball with this kind of grip. Because when you hit the ball, the racket is not completely straight, but is partially in a transversal position. And when you hit the ball takes a spin because it goes down. It hits the racket, goes down, and takes a spin that helps the ball raise very high when it bounces. So this is, for instance, a very common type of grip that is used by Rafa Nadal, by Djokovic, by Thiem, etc. There is another type of grip. Well, there are actually another 2. I will tell you also the last one, but it's used only, as far as we know, only one player used it. The following one, less and less common nowadays, but still used by some players, is the Western. So we say continental, Eastern, semi-Western, Western. The Western is precisely the same process. You continue on that surface. Surface 1, surface 2, 3, 4, surface 5. Down below. So you do the same thing. You put the palm there using the line that I drew, and it's similar to a semi-Western or semi-Western, but to hit the ball straight, you need to really bend your wrist a lot more. It's a bit less used nowadays because it tends to increase the risk of injuries because of the particular position. But it's basically an extreme way to hit the ball to give it top spin, to give the spin to the ball. It's so extreme that now less and less players use it because it needs a lot of precision. And since the balls are very fast nowadays, so the ball that is coming towards you is very fast. Some players don't have, only few players have that timing on the ball to hit the ball properly with a pure Western. So most of the players that you'll see use a semi-Western. And some still use the Eastern, very few use the Western, only one use the so-called Hawaiian. No, don't ask me why they call it that way. They call it like Hawaiian style. So far we know that only one player is called Berasategui doesn't play anymore. Probably stopped playing even before you were born. And it's on, instead of the 5th, on the 6th. So you go down all the way down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's a completely opposite to the ball. It's I don't really know how he could play that because that would break my wrist. But this guy used that stuff, that grip. One of the particularities of when you play Eastern. So Eastern is, remember, palm all the way down on the surface number 3. One of the particularity of this is that when you do the forehand, you hit with this surface. And then when you do the backhand, you hit with the other surface. I will explain the backhand in a second. In the Western grip, most of the time you hit the forehand, semi-Western, Western with this surface, and then you use the same surface for hitting the ball with the backhand. You follow me, guys? Eastern, this, and then this for the backhand. Western, always the same part of the racket for hitting the ball. What's the difference? None. It's just a curiosity, just a peculiarity. Other than that, there is no difference or no advantage or disadvantage because you use the 2 different sides of the racket or just one. So far, so good? Easy?
Yeah.
No? It's recording. You can check it over again. But is it clear, more or less clear? So you take the racket, you put it in this way. So with the frame up. Regardless, you can do this or you can do this. Doesn't matter really. Like, important is that one of the profile is up. and then you start counting. The top one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. For the backhand is similar, just that is probably there are less grips known, but not more but more combinations depending on what kind of backhand you use. In the backhand, so the other side, the forehand, is when you hit the ball on this side, on the side of your dominant arm. The backhand is when you hit the ball on the opposite side. So you are waiting for the ball. When it comes here is the backhand, the forehand. When it comes to the opposite side, so towards your non-dominant side, is the backhand. And the backhand can be played in two different ways: one-handed and two-handed. The one-handed is less and less common nowadays because it gives less control on the ball. And since the ball comes very, very fast, usually in professional tennis players, it's very complicated to control it when you have only one hand working. Anyways, in the backhand, one-hand backhand, there are three main combinations. When you hold the racket in a continental way, so continental, first surface, second surface. Continental, the hammer, you can hit the ball with the continental. So you have this grip. The ball is coming from you towards me, and you hit the ball. Very complicated because you have to use your wrist a lot in order to have the racket in front of you. So you have to bend your wrist quite a lot to hit the ball straight. The following and most common way to use to hold the backhand is the eastern. Now the eastern is a bit tricky in terms of in backhand we count differently than in forehand. So continental is still the same for forehand and backhand, the second area. But for the backhand, the eastern grip is on the area number 1. For the forehand, it would be for the area number 3 here. For the backhand is for the area number 1 here. So you basically put on area number 1 that line, and you have a classic eastern grip. The eastern grip is the easiest because when you hit the ball right here, if you imagine, if you do this, so you extend your arm in front of you with the fist closed, so with a fist, you put the racket right straight this way, and this is the eastern, meaning that when you hit the ball, in the moment in which you hit the ball, you have a natural position of the racket right in front of the ball. So you hit it very plain, very easy, very smooth. It's boom, hit the ball right here. I don't have to do any effort with my wrists because the position of my arm and my wrist is in line perpendicular to the racket. So prepare, hit, boom. And I try not to destroy my umbrella. This is the very classic way to play the one-hand backhand, which is used, for instance, by Federer and Wawrinka, even though they use it slightly modified, but we are not talking about it because it's not a professional tennis course, just the basics. They have a slight modification on their grip. And finally, there is the semi-western. So when you have the continental is here, the eastern is here, the semi-western is here. You use the 3 top areas. Middle, so top is eastern. In front is continental. Back up is semi-western. 1, 2, 3. The 3 top areas here. Eastern classic, continental, semi-western. Semi-western is a bit more open. What happens is that in the eastern, when you extend the arm in front of you, you would have precisely the face of the racket looking at the opposite side of the court. In the eastern, if you do the same, the racket is slightly transversal. Can you see that? West, eastern, straight. Boom, ball in front of you. Semi-western, racket is not precisely straight in front of you, but bent forward. Can you see that, guys?
Yep.
So this gives you a huge advantage to play spin, to play a ball with a spin. All tennis players play when they have rallies from the baseline, use a lot of spin because it allows you to give strength to the ball, but at the same time to keep the ball on the court. So it's better than a flat shot when you are rallying. So this is a huge advantage, the spin that you can give when you hit the ball with the semi-western. Obviously, most of the players that play one hand nowadays, but also those that play two hands, use for the dominant arm, they use the semi-western because it's easier to control and better for the spin. Some classical players still use the eastern. These are the three main for the one-hand backhand. And then we have those players, the majority that plays the two-hand backhand. Two-hand backhand is... Babo, non ce l'ha, mamma ce l'ha. It's the same concept, but you have to take into account that there is also a second hand holding the racket. So it's not only one with one hand, but with both hands that you hit the ball. So in this case, you have to figure out two grips, not one. The two grips are the dominant arm grip, so the way the dominant arm, the dominant hand holds the racket, and the supporting hand. The supporting hand is, in my case, the left hand, the non-dominant hand. Why so many players use the two hands backhand? Because it's easier to control the ball. Because the second hand gives you more control on the racket. So let's see. Wait a second, Anna, go with mommy, please. Inside their wardrobe in the lower part. No. The magnet in their wardrobe. Sorry guys, my kids just came back. So in this case, we have to figure out two things. First of all, how we hold the racket with the dominant hand, and second of all, how we hold the racket with the non-dominant. There are two ways to hold the racket with the dominant. One is the eastern, and the other is the semi-western. Exactly same as per the one-hand backhand. Eastern, remember, is when you hold the racket here on the top. So the dominant hand can be either eastern, here on the top, fist in front of you, the one that when you hit straight the ball, and the other is the semi-western, if you remember, is the one behind here. When you hit it this way, is when you have the racket slightly bent forward when you hit the ball. These are the two ways in which you hold the racket with the dominant. Now the other. So when you have, let's say until probably 5-6 years ago, most players would play the dominant with the eastern. Then it would be accompanied by an eastern left hand. Eastern. Let's first make an assumption. When I talk about the left hand or the non-dominant hand grip, we refer to it as the forehand. So when I say eastern non-dominant, I refer to the eastern forehand grip. You follow me a little? When I discuss about how the non-dominant hand holds the racket in a backhand, and I say eastern, I refer to the forehand eastern. So the forehand eastern is here on this side, the number 3. Yeah, if you go back and you check how do you hold the racket with a forehand, the eastern is 1, 2, 3 here. So I do eastern top, and with the hand there is no non-dominant eastern. So I put my hand like I was holding a forehand eastern. This is the way I hold the racket when I hit the backhand, for instance. This is a very pure and old technique that allows you to, when you hit the ball with two hands, you have precisely the ball straight in front of you, and the racket is straight. The other way is when you have, and is most players nowadays, the dominant hand is holding a semi-western, meaning that it's here. Remember, for a one hand would be position of the racket, then forward. The non-dominant hand has also a semi-western for a forehand. Semi-western forehand would be 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. So I have a semi-western backhand plus semi-western forehand. The result is when I hit the ball, instead of the racket being this way, the racket is this way, giving a lot more top speed because the ball is not straight hit, but it's still hit transversally and it gets spin. Does it make a bit of sense? I would have explained and showed you too on a tennis court, but unfortunately we cannot. So when we talk about the non-dominant, remember that for the dominant we discuss about backhand grip. For the non-dominant is a description of the forehand. Backhand Eastern, forehand Eastern. Semi-Western backhand, semi-Western forehand, and hitting. You can try if you have a racket, and you can see this video. Or I was going to send you a link that describes it very well, and so you can maybe and hopefully figure it out better. But unfortunately, since we are not on a court and I cannot show you, it's more complicated. Questions so far?
Yes. The hammer grip is the same thing as the continental grip, right?
Correct. Hammer is not the official way we call it. Hammer is the way we call it for kids, for instance, or for beginners to make them understand how to hold the continental. And it's hammer because when you hold continental, you have the racket straight in front of you, like it goes for a hammer.
Yes.
So that's the way we explain it to kids, basically, or to beginners. But
Okay,
it's exactly the same. Hammer is continental. Other questions, guys?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you change grip types during the game, or does every player has
obviously
just
you have
one?
No, obviously you have to change every time because you're playing a forehand and the following ball comes backhand and you have to switch to the backhand grip. So yes, it's for the serve, for the volleys you have different. They are more or less around the same, but that's one of the complicated things in for beginners in tennis. You should change grip every time you get a ball in a different spot. Mm-hmm. The classical example that we give to kids when I used to teach kids, depending on the age, right? But when they are a bit older and they already use a scooter or a motorbike or something, I tell them to accelerate when they want to switch from forehand to backhand. You are on a forehand this way, and then you want to switch to backhand. You have to accelerate to give gas. And you switch to the it looks like giving gas. You have this is a forehand, and then to switch. This is one of the classical ways that we explain kids to change to switch between forehand and backhand. Classical that is taught in the beginning, then little by little the kids can choose their own grip, but typically as a start we teach just to understand because it's like hitting the ball with your palm. So it's more natural. So yes, you have to switch all the time.
You switch
Other
with
questions?
one hand, or?
I'm sorry?
You switch it only with one hand, or you use the second hand for...
Some players use the second hand for the forehand, but it's not even discussed anywhere because it's so uncommon that usually you switch only one hand, you're dominant. Because the two hands, you use them only for the backhand, typically. Very, very few players play also the forehand with two hands. I think I remember one professional in male and maybe 2 or 3 in females, but it's not very common. So mostly you will have to switch the dominant hand. because the other is you are not using it except for when you go for the backhand, so you don't have to switch it, but only use it when it comes to backhand. You follow me, guys? Other questions? Then let's go into what the hell is the other hand doing when you use only one hand. Because when you have the backhand with two hands, okay, it's clear. The second hand, the non-dominant, is right there, and you use it for hitting the ball. But when you use only one hand, what's the other doing? So in forehand, which is 99.999% used only with one hand, what does the non-dominant hand do? Well, typically it's used for pointing, literally pointing at the ball. It's a sort of a way to keep the balance with your body. Let me put it in a way that maybe you can see full body. No, less. I'm giving some more space. If the ball is coming from that direction, I'm getting ready. I prepare to hit the forehand, and this hand is pointing. You can use the finger and point literally. You can use the wall hand, but it's usually in position in front of you. This is, we say pointing, but actually you don't really use it for pointing the ball. You use it to have balance. So this way you have a sort of balance. Rather than this, you don't have any balance, or the balance is reduced. That we have medical students. They can tell you that the center of gravity moves depending on where the parts of our bodies are. So in this way, I have more balance in this way or this way. So usually the second hand is used for, we say pointing, but it's open forward in front of you. Okay. So far, so good, guys?
Yep.
For the one hand backhand, the function of the non-dominant hand is a bit different. When you do a two-hand, this is too low. This is too high. When you do a two-hand, the second hand here helps you controlling the racket, so the racket doesn't go anywhere because you have two hands controlling it. But when you do one hand, if you hit the ball just like this, you may lose control of the racket because at the start you don't control its position. It's difficult to control the position of the racket here when you start the shot. So the second hand is a support for this. I hold the racket typically this way when I'm waiting for a ball to come, and it comes from that side towards my backhand. The left hand, in my case left, if you're left-handed, the right hand, brings the racket back. And then at the moment in which I want to hit the ball, I release the hand. So it's like in a spring. I put the spring down and then phew. In the moment in which I want to hit the ball, I release the left hand or the non-dominant hand, and the racket goes. So it helps me keep control of the position of the head. I'm waiting, bring back, see the racket, see the hand, bring back, release. You see it from this side, I'm waiting. Oh wait, from which side? Probably is better. I'm waiting, and then this arm, the non-dominant, leads the racket back to be ready to hit the ball, and then release. So far, so good? Is it clear? No? Yes? You are still with me?
It's a bit hard to understand you. It's a bit hard to understand you because we are further away than your family.
Oh, sorry.
So it's quite loud with your family.
So let me repeat it. Let me repeat it without, yeah, I try to use I have the Bluetooth micro and Bluetooth headphones, but apparently they are not working really well, so I decided not to use them because they are disconnecting every 2 seconds. Anyways, what I was saying is that the second hand is supporting, is keeping the racket straight before the shot. So I'm still here. I'm pulling the racket behind with the second hand, keeps control of the position of the racket because it stabilizes the position of the racket, brings down, and the moment in which I want to hit the ball, I release the hand and hit the ball. So it's still a way to stabilize the position of the racket. Did you hear me better now?
Yeah.
So second hand, this. Questions on that? No? Then let's go into the how to hit the ball in general. So we've seen the grip that I have to have. We have seen the position of the or the function of the non-dominant hand. Now the rest of the body, what does it do? The main thing is how do we hit the ball when the ball comes from a certain side? We hit it never frontally, but always lateral on a side. Let me show you, and then if you don't hear it, I will explain it again. So that's the net. I'm on this side. The ball is coming from that side towards me. I never hit the ball frontal. This is frontal, looking at the other side. But I always turn on one side or the other. So I'm lateral. The ball comes from there. If it comes to my backhand, I turn and I'm lateral. So I'm actually forming a perpendicular line towards the other side. And I hit the ball to the other side this way. Never this way, but lateral. Are you with me, guys? Many professional players hit the ball and they are completely frontal, but that's a different story because then you develop certain skills and certain knowledge on tennis and you can do it in different ways. But the basic technique is lateral. And the same is for the forehand. When the forehand comes, when a ball comes towards my forehand, I never hit it this way, but I go lateral. Raise my body laterally to the other side. If the ball comes from there, so you can see me frontal, turn, lateral, boom. So I'm always in a position that is lateral compared to the opposite court. Is that clear, guys? Starting to be hot here. If you have questions or something you couldn't hear or you have doubts, just let me know now. Like, everything clear. Good. Wonderful. So lateral is the first rule. I have an emergency. I don't know if you hear the crying, but it's my kid. Sorry. So lateral is the first rule. The second thing is your trunk is always straight. Okay? So your trunk is not bending forward, it's not bending backwards, but it must keep straight. And that's why we were discussing about the importance of the core in tennis, because your trunk is mostly straight. It's okay. Here we have a sort of an emergency, sorry. A very bad injury. Go on. So the trunk is always straight. When you hit the ball, and now I'll show you, you don't do, if the ball is low, you don't do this. Never. The trunk is always straight. What you do is you go down with your knees and you bend your knees. So the ball is very low, but the trunk is still straight. Both in backhand and forehand. Kari, Nishi, can you take them? Sorry, guys. Sto parlando con degli amici. So the trunk is always straight. You never really bend forward, bend backwards, but what bends is the legs. The legs go down if the ball is low, not the trunk. Lateral position, trunk straight. And then a third important rule is that you try to, can you hear me well? Because it tells me that the connection is bad. You try to, I suppose, yes, you can, right? Can you hear me? Guys? More or less?
Yes.
Yes.
So the third rule is that you don't need to be really strong in tennis. Like you don't need to have big muscles or this stuff to push the ball, but the ball uses this, takes speed based on how fast is your arm. So fast, not strong, but fast. At the same time, is a transfer of weight. The weight is all on the leg that is behind, and then during the shot moves towards the leg that is in the front. If I'm hitting the ball and I'm this way, I hit that way, the weight is here. When I hit the ball, the weight goes here. I transfer my weight from this part to this part. So I hit very fast with my arm. Trunk straight, arm fast. Do it, Roscoe. Same for the backhand. So the trunk is straight. I'm going. The trunk is straight. The arm is very fast as you can. And there is a transfer of weight between the back part towards the forward part. Is that clear so far?
Yeah.
Okay, now you have to give me a second. Sorry, but my kid pooped and I am the only one allowed to clean her butt. I'm sorry. Give me just a second. I will come back in a second.
Mal eine Frage an euch, generell, weil jetzt ja die Kurse, die ganzen praktischen auf September gelegt worden sind. Und ich jetzt aber gelesen habe, dass sie überlegen, ob sie USI-Kurse wieder starten sollen im Juni. Hat da von euch jemand nachgefragt bei der Studienvertretung oder sowas irgendwie? Ich meine, bei ihm ist es ja eh okay, weil er sagt, dass nicht unbedingt anwesend sein muss, aber ich habe einige Kurse, wo sie sagen, da muss man anwesend sein. Und ich finde das schon ein bisschen komisch.
Everything is clean. Sorry. That's one of my kids doesn't allow her mom to clean her butt. It's only me. I have dishonor. So the transfer. And we said 3 rules already. That's why it's so complicated. You have to think too many things in the beginning, but laterally, straight, trunk straight, transfer of weight, and finally, you actually do not move too much the legs and your body in general when you are hitting the ball. So this is the typical mistake of beginner is this one. Or moving. When you hit the ball, you should reach the ball in a position that you don't need to move your legs. So you run for the ball, stop. I don't move. I don't do step forward. I don't do any dance, but I just hit the ball. So it's very important to maintain the control of the ball, that when you hit it, you try to be as steady as you can with your body. The only thing that really goes is your arm as fast as you can. Obviously, if you go with the arm very fast and with your body you are moving anywhere else, then it's likely that your ball will end up out. But if you control your body, transfer the weight, and let only the arm go, then it's likely that it's a good shot. Both for backhand and forehand. Questions? One of the main things that we do for, let's say, traditional teaching is we give them to make especially kids understand the position of the legs, is to put something as reference. Like for instance, I put, let's say, this and this. I put this and this as whatever is reference. Here, here. Move, please. And I tell the kids to put the feet where the references are. So the kids have to put 1 foot here, 1 foot here, and then they do. So I put 2 references on the floor. So the kids, especially for kids, because adults can imagine mostly the position, but for kids it's more difficult to get an idea of I have to be laterally, etc. So you put some visual reference for them to step on it. It can be more typically 2 rings. So you put 2 rings on the floor, and they have to be on with 1 foot inside 1 ring, with the other foot inside the other ring. And then they can't move to hit the ball. So you try to toss them the ball very close, and they can't move from there when they are hitting. So they learn that they have to only use their arm to hit the ball. You follow me, guys?
Yeah.
Questions? All the traditional exercises that we do are like based on technique. I'm not really fond of those because I think that they can be taught in a way that is more gameful, let's say, regardless of the age. I prefer to do some game exercise that implies some activities that is fun. So you don't have to focus too much on traditional style teaching of repeating a movement 20 times, but also is used. There are many coaches or many trainers that what they do is just, and I'm sure that if you pass by a tennis court, you have seen some coaches feeding over and over 20, 30, 40 balls continuously to a player or to someone, and that one was hitting and repeating. For professionals, well, depending on how tough is the exercise, like physically, it can be fine. For beginners or intermediate, it's over the time I figure out, I coached for many years, that it's a bit boring. They mostly they don't want to become professionals, or at least not yet, but they just want to enjoy and learn. So there are also thousands of different exercises that you can do that imply games and that work out the technique of forehand and backhand. Actually, I'm going to go inside now, where the connection is also better, and I will explain to you a bit these exercises, just a little, because obviously we would have played them. I will put them in a paper as always, so you can see what I'm talking about. But I cannot show you because it implies more people. Like, I am alone here, maximum my wife, my kids don't listen to me, so don't count with them. So I will just discuss them with you very short. So let me go inside, so you can hopefully hear me better. Coming inside, go in there. Oh, they're new. I will remove them now. I have to remove the shoes. It's the rule of the house. Puoi guardare se vuoi. Basta che non parli. Ok? E non fischiare. Grazie. Agni, no. Okay. So let me share with you the screen so you can see some exercises. Okay. These are just examples of what we would have done if we were on the court. One we have already discussed the last time, I think. The first exercise, I use it a lot for warming up, anime. And it's raining balls. I think we talked about it last time. You have the two teams. You divide the people in two teams, one on one side of the court, one on the other side of the court, and you have balls. You spread balls around the two courts, like same amount of balls. Like, let's say that one team on their side they have 50 balls, the other team on their side they have another 50 balls. And then when I say start, the objective is each kid or each participant in the team, they have to pick up one ball at a time and throw it to the other side. When I say stop, the team that has less ball on their side is the winner. We discussed it last time as a warm-up, I think. In this case, the rule is they can only do it with the forehand, or they can only do it with the backhand. So they have to take the ball and try to hit a forehand towards the other side. They can't toss the ball the way they want, but only trying to use their forehand. So they are working already. It's a sort of a warm-up in which they're already working their forehand or backhand or whatever shot you want to work with. Is that clear, guys? It's pretty easy. There are thousands of them. For instance, the Rafa challenge, as they call it, Rafa Nadal challenge. you have still two teams. A team is defending and a team is attacking. It's like sort of not volleyball, but you have a team, the attacking team, that needs to toss the ball to the other side, and so it's on one side of the court. They need to hit the ball and try the other team not to reach it, not to touch the ball. So they have to hit so strongly the ball that nobody from the other team can reach it. And the objective of the other team is actually to touch the ball, any ball that comes from the other side. So if I'm defending my side and I touch the ball, no point for the other team. If I'm defending and I can't touch the ball and nobody on my team can touch the ball and the ball just passes by, it's a point for the attacking team. Do you follow me, guys? More or less? Two teams, one team has the ball, has to toss the ball to the other side with a forehand and try for the other team who's occupying the space on the other side not to touch the ball with the racket in any way. If I'm able to toss the ball to the other side with a forehand and nobody from that team can touch the ball, then it's a point for me. If not, if someone from the other team touches it, it's 0 points. And then after a certain time, you switch roles. The defending becomes attacker, the attacker becomes defender, and so on. And here's a very good exercise because the person needs to try to aim actually at a free spot on the other side rather than just tossing the ball randomly. In the previous exercise, it's raining balls. I don't tell them to toss the ball in any specific point, but I tell them that you have to toss the ball to the other side so to have less balls on your side. In this game, they must actually check where the others are on the other side and try to hit the ball in a free spot so nobody can reach it. Does it make sense? Yes, no, also yes with your hand, with your head is working for me. So these are very simple exercises. The American is another that is a bit crazy. Probably you would have liked to do it because it's typically everybody likes to do it unless you really hate to run. But it's you have two lines, one on one side of the court and one on the other side of the court. And then there is only one ball in play. So I'm on one side of the court, I'm the first in the line. I hit the ball with my forehand. And then after hitting the ball, I have to run to the other line in the opposite side. The ball, after I hit it, goes to the other side. The first in line in the other side hits the ball and has to run on this side of the court. Do you follow me? So everybody's running, hitting and running, and going to feed a line. What's the point on it? The point is when you miss a ball, you have one mistake. When you have 3 mistakes or 2 mistakes or whatever, you are out. Obviously, you are not completely out. You're doing some other exercise on another court, but you're out of this specific game. And little by little, there are less and less people on the court because they miss balls, so they make mistakes and they are out of the game until at a certain point, there are only 2 remaining. Those 2 that never made a mistake or just made a few mistakes. And those 2 play against each other 1 point. The one that wins that point is the winner. And this, you can force them to play only forehand or only backhand, forehand and backhand. And it's a game that you use for developing these strokes. And at the same time, you are playing at something. So you're having fun. Usually it's fun until a certain point when you have 4 or 5 or 3 players playing this game, you have to run really fast because you hit the ball and then you have to go to the other side before the others hit the ball back. So it's kind of crazy. It's a bit that we cannot see it really in practice because it makes more sense also. Is that more or less clear? Approximately how it works? Thank you, Mishi.
Yep.
And then there are plenty of other games that probably it's easier if you read them rather than me explaining it. For instance, there is one that I call Escape from Alcatraz. So you use your imagination, but for them to have the possibility to try the strokes, and at the same time have a game in which they have fun. So they don't think too much about the technique and the position, especially for kids, it's more complicated, but they do it naturally. One of the exercises that we would have done is the so-called tennis soccer. That's the most favorite of kids. You have on one side 2 cones, then create a sort of a goal. Okay, it's a goal like in soccer. And there is a goalkeeper. One of the group that is playing with you will start as goalkeeper. All the other players are on the other side, and their objective is to score a goal. So the final objective of the game is, when the time is over, to be the goalkeeper. How do you become the goalkeeper? If you score a goal. So when you score a goal, you run to the other side to become the goalkeeper. The one who was the goalkeeper previously has to run back to the other side and become the attacker. So I keep feeding balls. They have to hit forehand and backhand, try to score a goal. If you score a goal, you go there and then you have to defend the goal. You defend the goal by stopping the balls or deflecting the balls with your racket. So it also is also very good because the goalkeeper is not training forehand and backhand, but the goalkeeper is familiarizing with the racket because they still have to use the racket to deflect the balls. And so you are playing continuously for 3, 4, 5 minutes. When the time is over, there is one person who stayed the goalkeeper. The last one is scoring a goal, and that's the winner of the round. Is that clear, guys? So you can do, for instance, I'm sorry, was there a question or just yes, it's clear?
It was clear.
So you actually, guys, do games. For instance, I'm really into games rather than pure technique, and there are plenty of them. This particular one is pretty fun, and you can do several rounds. One round, you can only use forehand. The other round, you can only use backhand. And in the final round, you can use either backhand and forehand, depending on whatever you prefer, or you can alternate. So you're working out still these shots, and obviously you as a coach, you are giving them suggestions every time they hit. For instance, they hit and the ball goes way higher compared to the goal where you want to score the goal to the goalkeeper. So you are telling them, okay, maybe you should try to change your grip and switch to this, or try to put your legs in a certain way. Try to be, depending on the age of the kids or the adults, you can be more or less detailed. So if you tell a kid to put their legs 90 degrees, flex their knees 90 degrees, probably they don't really know what 90 degrees means. But so trying to be, depending on the age, giving more or less details, you are still giving hints for them to little by little learn by themselves what's the best way to hit the shot to score a goal, which is eventually is basically how the best way to hit the shot to hit it well in tennis. This is a good posture for, again, beginners, intermediate, because they don't have any intention, or if they don't have any intention to become professionals, but they are just learning, is a good learning way. Obviously, if you are professionals, that's completely different, and there are all the exercises that are very strictly technical or technical physical, like we saw the last time. I remember the last time we saw the exercises that blended the physical aspect with the tennis aspect, so hitting the ball but at the same time running. All these exercises work also for working out the technique in competition situations. But I think that you don't really need to know that. I'd rather prefer you to understand and learn those situations in which you can use games and at the same time teach tennis. So maybe you don't find, maybe you won't become a tennis coach, but maybe you become an exercise professional. You'll have different groups, and maybe you can use tennis not to learn tennis, but to have fun. So that's the point of the games. You can use them for teaching tennis in a fun way, or you can use tennis for having fun and exercising in different ways, so cardio, respiratory fitness, and other stuff. Oh, I didn't realize that sometimes people write me. Okay. So, questions? Everything is wonderful and clear. Let me. So this is I will send you the Word file with the exercises. It's unlikely that I find any exercise like that really done on video, YouTube, etc. Perhaps, but it's probably unlikely. But for me, the most important thing is remember the grips, remember the rules of technique that we saw, because those are those you will have to apply when you have the famous final exam. I will send you an example of a shot, and then you will have to tell me what went wrong. So that's based on what I told you today about the technique. And then remember that the best solution for presenting exercises for beginners or intermediate is through games. So any game that you can think about using your creativity, or games that I suggest you, they work much better than pure technique teaching, especially when you have beginners. And this is what we're going to do also in the following meetings. Like, I'll show you different shots, and at the same time I will discuss some games that you can use for learning those shots. Oh, someone is watching me actually. You don't have the Facebook open and like looks like you're looking at me. Oh, don't worry, guys. That's what I would do. I would have opened and Facebook or whatever, and I would do Thank you, Mishi. So I will send you I will definitely send you. I have it open, the link for the grips, so you can check it again. But the rule is, remember this line, and place this line on each different surface of the racket. I've seen someone showing the racket, like someone had the racket there. I think that Tina had it. So you can keep trying. I found that's very easy way to learn the grips is this surface plus the 8 surfaces of the grip. So a part of the video recording of today that, as always, I put there, I will also upload these links so you can read it in case you want to know more things about the grips. But that's pretty much what we discussed in the first part today. If you don't have any questions, I will let you go. And then if you have questions later on, as always, you can always write me. So the video from the last time is there in OLAT, and in the same place. I'll try to do it immediately, so it doesn't take me much time. You will also have this. So remember that you can use the first video, the video of the last time, for like guidance for the warm-up. This video and the following ones will be for the technique and for the final exam. But next week we don't meet. We meet in 2 weeks. So you are free next week. Free relatively, because I guess that you have enough tasks already from other courses. So I won't charge you. I won't load you too much. Yeah.
I have one question.
Sure.
I've been at OLAT, but I'm not really. I don't know what to do. I don't know what do we have to do for the next time. Do we have to write something, or you said we have to analyze the?
So all the tasks are due by the last class, official class of the semester in June. So you don't have to do anything like immediately, but I suggest that you start doing things, and that's precisely I put everything in there so you can start working on them. If you go in OLAT, I never seen OLAT from the side of the student, but I suppose that the same folders that I create, you see them there, right? There are different folders. The folder with the match analysis, if you go there, there are instructions and files on how to do the match analysis. And there are videos. You open one video and you analyze one set of each. The videos are tennis matches. You choose only one video, you open it, you watch a set, and then you analyze it with the observation sheet that I also uploaded there. Some students had doubts because not everybody has it clear 100%, they wrote me, I reply immediately if you have doubt. But everything you need to know about the tasks are in OLAT. Unfortunately, I'm not that familiar either because I've been here for only 2 semesters. This is my second full semester here. So, but I think is you just enter and there are different, right guys? There are the different folders the way I put them, no? Match analysis and this stuff, warm up. There is a folder specifically in which there is called useful files. In there you find a lot of files that can help you with the tasks. For instance, there is a file in which there are the teams. Since you're going to do some work in teams, you find your name there and you see what there is in the team, so you can get in contact with them. Is that okay?
Yep. Maybe I have to look them again.
Anyways, if you have doubts, you can write me privately an email and I'll try to guide you. But I think that if you just go there and you start like wandering around the folders, you'll find surely what you look for. And again, if not, just write me an email, please. Silence is confirmation in Italian. We say silenzio assenso. So, so that's it for today. I'll see you in 2 weeks and try to start doing the things. I know that you're already full packed of things. So, but the sooner you start doing the things, the sooner I can solve your doubts if you have any. See you in 2 weeks, guys. Have fun.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao, grazie.
Prego.